Can you feel it? Can you feel the joy? I can. I can. It's so good to see you all, alumni returning back to the Parkway building, Parkway campus, to honor classmates, past teachers. So thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for being part of the festivities. Oh, can you hear me?
We have to turn the microphone on, I think.
Oh, it's on.
There it is.
Oh,
there it is.
I guess I have to boom a little more, huh? All right. I'm Michael Gary, in my 7th year here as head of schools. And I want to say thank you for inviting me to your Friend Select family. I do feel very much a part of it, and I look forward to getting to know each and every one of you better. So thank you for being here this morning. Before we get started, I think it's only appropriate that we share some silent worship. And before we do that, can we also hold Dean Kerr and his family in the light? Please join me in sincere silent worship. Thank you. This is our Alumni Awards program, and I have the privilege of introducing Mark Eisenberg, who will be master of the ceremony this morning. Mark represents a legacy here at Friend Select. Son and daughter, son's attendant here who's now an alum. Daughter Rosie's back here, sorry for pointing you out, but she's here. And Martha's mom, Ellen Cates, graduated in 1952. So 3 generations. So Martha and family, thank you. And Martha also is past recipient of the Meritorious Service Award, and doesn't have the year here. Do you know what year that was?
I should know what year.
But that's okay.
Pre-COVID, right?
Pre-COVID. Okay, all right. Pre-COVID.
He's
80 BC pre-COVID. All right, got it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Martha. So Martha.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much, Michael. This is truly one of my favorite events, and Michael, I have to start by saying thank you to you and certainly to Chris Jefferson and the whole team here who put this together. Despite the rain and the dreariness outside, there's a lot of joy in here. You know, the spring fair is going on, which is why we're now in the library instead of the theater, because there's bands going on and all sorts of fun and merriment that has been brought back to Friend Select, thank you very much, to celebrate the spirit that really is this place. This is certainly always an honor to be here and to see so many familiar faces and faces that aren't so familiar but have a familiar theme to them, this theme of community and spirit and the precious place that Friend Select holds in our lives, which I think is something that my dear friend Nina Pritzker and I were very surprised to encounter when we came to our first Alumni Award ceremony many years ago. I'd never been to one before, and I couldn't get over just how impactful this ceremony and these awards are to all of us, to the recipients and to the community that honors the recipients. You know, there's a place and a way in which Friend Select is a real part of who we are, and I think to come together as a community to celebrate that feels appropriate and special. And the theme of what makes this school so special is part of, I think, what makes everyone in this audience so special, and I'm delighted to be here to honor the folks who have received these really lovely awards. It's always great fun to be part of the committee that sort of puts this together and selects them. There's so much spirit and enthusiasm for the people who are honored today, and never more so than this group of folks. I'm also extra delighted because my friend and classmate is receiving an award today, and that's a really lovely part of this weekend. In fact, we got together with a group of 8 of us last night had a sort of delightful, slightly debaucherous dinner together and celebrated my dear friend Rachel. But also there was a group of graduates of the 80s who came together, and despite the teeming rain, the sort of sideways rain, we were at an outdoor event, snuggled up together and had a really lovely time remembering and celebrating the spirit of what was Friends Select and what is Friends Select now. What is Friends Select now feels a little bit different than it did back in the 80s for me and different generations for other people. And Michael, I give you a lot of credit for that. I think the thing I have to sort of say, forgive me any English teachers around the audience right now because this is a terrible oxymoron, but there's a way in which Michael is teaching us to be proudly humble instead of just humble about our school. And I think that's a wonderful shift for this community because we should all be very proud of this place and the people that it makes. So without further ado, we've got a hefty schedule ahead of us. We're doing a little bit of shifting around to accommodate schedules. So in that way that we can all be flexible, if you'll kind of turn to the last award first, I'm delighted to be able to introduce someone who will start us off with a sports award, with the Athletic Hall of Fame award for Jim Wong, class of 1973. And I will there you go. Give it up. I will say this is an award that I will never get. There were many things that I scored 2 points, not 2 baskets, but 2 points for the girls' basketball team the one year I was there. I know, there should have been applause right at that moment. It was certainly the last basket that I ever made on behalf of this team. But, I was talking ahead of time about how to introduce the concept of this Athletic Hall of Fame, and my wonderful daughter, Rose, sorry, Rose, I'm getting pointed out twice, gave me the words that I needed to say. And that's that Friends Select is so much about community. And there's, one place that really does show up, and that's with the sports and the teams that are here, and the sense of community extends beautifully through the teams. We are not always known for our sports team. That's changing, by the way. There's a way in which Friends Select really is growing and glowing, and its sports teams are. And I encourage you all to go downstairs to they call it now the Falcon's Nest, sort of near the mat room, where you can see some of the Athletic Hall of Fame names honored down there, and just explore the many ways that the sports are growing. But without further ado, I will stop talking, and I have the real pleasure of introducing Dr. Keith Walkner, who might not recognize me. You actually helped me out with a terrible case of intercession. I think it might have been sort of somehow I can trace that back, so that's why. Maybe years ago it was brewing. But he is here to introduce his friend and teammate, and someone who we heard wonderful things about. Jim Wong, so please come join us.
Thank you, guys. It's actually a real blast for me to see so many of you guys who I have not seen in 50 years. It's kind of scary. It's really a pleasure for me to introduce Jim. Mike Fitz and Gary Albright basically told me that if I didn't show up, they would personally keep the living daylights out of me for not being here. They send their regrets that they can't be here as well. As you guys probably remember, Mike, Gary, and I were three amigos. We hung out. We inherited the wrestling team from my brother and Paul Marcucci. And when we were juniors, there were no seniors on the team. And remember, we were thinking, well, what's going to happen after us? And there was this young guy who was on our team who had it all. Jim was smart. He was dedicated. He basically had all the talent. And in a school like this, there's a lot of really talented people. So to stand out in that crowd takes a lot. And I think that the thing that hit me over the last 2 days watching the NFL draft was what really, I think, distinguished Jim and made us realize that he was going to inherit this from the three of us. Was not only did he have the talent, not only did he have the smarts and the athletic ability, but he had this incredible sense of drive and never quit. He just put 100% of his effort into everything that he did. And rather than, you can see all the list of his accomplishments that are in the brochure, and you guys all lived it, so you all know what he went through. But I can just tell you, I remember Mike, Gary, and I talking about him when we were juniors, how impressed we were. And when we found out that Jim wasn't in the Hall of Fame yet, we were like, how did that ever not happen? So we were pretty instrumental in starting a campaign to get him here, and it's our absolute pleasure. The sort of irony in the fact that Mike and Gary can't be here is that Mike and Gary is standing in by name, so we're here in spirit. I think it's very nice of friends to like to hire you for this event. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jim and let him speak.
I'd like to thank my three Hall of Fame teammates, Mike Fitz, Gary Albright, and Keith Wapner for nominating me, and Matt Rosenblatt, my classmate who wrote a letter in support, and the selection committee for this honor. Wrestling taught me a number of things in preparation for life. It taught me about determination and self-control and willpower. In order to maintain weight or to cut weight, Gary taught me how to survive on a boiled egg and a can of tuna fish. He didn't tell me that he had this hanger in dealing with that. It also taught me about self-confidence and overcoming your fears. Wrestling's a team sport, but when you step out onto the mat, you're all by yourself, and you have to deal with those fears, the monsters that come out. And surprisingly, it taught me something about fatherly love. Dr. Wapner, Keith's dad, after matches, he'd go up to Keith and he'd kiss him right on the lips. And instead of recoiling, Keith would accept the kiss with the love in which it was given. And I grew up without a dad, so that made a really big impression on me. And I said that that's the kind of dad I want to be. And that's the kind of relationship I want to have with my kids. So while they were growing up, I didn't kiss them on the lips because I don't think they would be that accepting. But I do, and I did, always give them the biggest hugs whenever I saw them or whenever I said goodbye to them. And I'm happy and proud to say they hugged me right back. When I was in 8th grade, I started my varsity wrestling career. But I also started and ended my acting career. Our class put on the play Richard III. And I was Richard III. Now, 24 hours ago, I was going to say that the fact that I was Richard III said something about the inclusive nature of a Quaker education. But yesterday, I had some talks with people in my class, and it made me realize that maybe I was looking at my time here with kind of rosy glasses, and it needed kind of to be wiped a little bit. And diversity, acceptance, equality, inclusion. There were things that, looking back, things that we coulda, shoulda done better than. But they're still so very important now. And for this community, our community, the Quaker community, as we move forward and continue to seek that light within us. So anyway, getting back to me being Richard III, I came out in my black cape, sword by my side, and I went to center stage. It was the first play, I think, that was put on in the theater. And I opened the play with the line, "Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this son of York." So while I am now approaching, not yet in, the winter of my life, this is one glorious made summer for this son of Select.
And Martha, do you want to join in this picture? Yes. And can we get one of Keith and Jim? Yeah, that'd be perfect. Thank you. And for those of you, we are filming this and it's on YouTube, so if you'd like to see it later on, just go to the Friends Select YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Jim, I don't think it's fair to make me cry. But that's just a thing of beauty. I think that's what I was talking about. You know, you think you're coming to a sports award, and in fact, you're coming to a whole lot more. Thank you so much for that. That was very, very moving. And I will say, as the parent of a recent Friends Select graduate, who graduated last year, and a soon-to-graduate Friends Selector, it does feel like we are teaching this generation of people who will make the changes and continue the changes that you spoke of. And that, for me, feels very important and is really the reason why my children are here. I always look to we Friends Select graduates and think that we bring that spirit of healing and of appropriate behavior to the world. So thank you for reminding us of it in such a beautiful way. Anyway, for me, this is an awfully fun next step because, as I said, my friend and fellow classmate Rachel Zimmerman is receiving the Distinguished Alumni Award, which is really an incredible award here at Friends Select. And one of my favorite people who I haven't seen in a zillion years, and so you forget that they're one of your favorite people until you see them again. Jill Frank is here to introduce Rachel, and so I will turn it over to you, Jill.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. I'm very happy to follow the sports award because it got me thinking. It was a wonderful speech, Jim, and it got me thinking about my relationship to sports. And I just wanted to mention that when I was here, I was the varsity men's basketball manager. And I believe I was the first woman manager, and the only reason that happened was because Coach Terry appointed me and took me under my wing, and we just recently lost him, and so I just wanted to say something about him. He was an amazing man, and he taught me how to do the stats, which I still remember today, and it was a wonderful experience. And I believe, Martha, did you tell me last night that your daughter Rose is now the varsity basketball boys manager? So another third shout out to Rose. So Rachel Zimmerman is a person who can make something from nothing. The art community in Philadelphia in the 1990s was challenged at best. Fragmented, under-resourced, and not at all flourishing. I remember getting a phone call from Rachel in 1990 when she was very giddy and happily repeating, I bought a building. Well, this building that caused her so much excitement was in pretty rough shape. No walls, barely a floor. She and her design-talented mother, Diane, remodeled it, and it became her beautiful, unique living space, as well as the first offices for her company that she named In Liquid, a nod to artists needing to sell art to keep the cash flowing in their lives. Her idea about how to create an exciting, flourishing art community to replace the nothing that existed began to take shape. Who better to do it, really? Rachel had all the right skills. She is an artist herself. She studied photography at the esteemed Tisch School at New York University, where we both went. She understood the ups and downs of an artist's life. She was also annoyed that at the time, the only way to get recognition as an artist was to live in New York, live a questionable quality of life, and mostly scrape by. And she didn't want to do this. She liked to back the underdog. In keeping with our Quaker training, she has a sensitivity to the plight of others, especially the underrepresented, like so many starving artists are. She wants to help. She makes a difference in her community and to rise up to those who struggle. Many of these artists are also teaching children how to be the next generation of artists. In Liquid's annual Art for the Cash Poor is an arts fair where artists apply and must be accepted to sell their work at affordable prices so that every income earner is able to purchase and own art. In Liquid lives their motto, everyone is a collector. Equality is another Quaker value she practices. In the mission statement of In Liquid, it says, to nurture the public's appreciation of all forms of visual art. She does this through providing ways for artists to communicate with their communities. Community, another strong Quaker value. She had the idea to use the internet to connect artists with their community. It's the ultimate in networking. Connecting businesses and individuals with artists they can commission to make art for their unique spaces. Rachel was the best person to take on this mission because she is the best networker I know. Her memory is uncanny. She recalls everyone she's ever met. She will text you back in a matter of minutes, and she keeps in touch with zillions of people in real touch. She wants to know how you are. She is in contact with so many Friends Select alumni, it boggles my mind. She also has a business acumen that is rarely seen among artists. She's created a nonprofit foundation, raised money to support In Liquid, and hired a board of directors to keep it going by networking with donors and patrons of the arts. In Liquid offers 40 to 50 art exhibitions per year. Also, there's an art advisory committee that helps connect artists with gallery owners, designers, and curators, and ensures that artists of diverse backgrounds are visible. All this takes ideas, enduring energy, timing, and risk. Through the recessions of 2008 and 2013, as well as the pandemic, Rachel persevered. She refused to let any of her 8 employees go. She described to me how In Liquid stayed nimble through the hardships by scaling back, then scaling back up, getting PPP loans, etc. Surviving and thriving during hardships is something she does very well. She lost her father last year and her husband this year, and is now raising 2 incredible high school students on her own. She's running her son up and down the Eastern Seaboard looking at amazing colleges, and her daughter will be starting Friends Select in September in 10th grade. Congratulations, Rachel Zimmerman, on receiving the Friends Select Distinguished Alumni Award. You are distinguished, you are an FSS alum, and you and another of our classmates, Kristen Alden, have been my best friends for 43 years. We are so proud of all you do.
So, listen, I cannot do any of the stuff I do without my family. My mom's here, my sister, who is my soulmate. I don't know what, she keeps everything going. I'm like the big vision person, and she keeps me sane, and tethered to this earth. But anyway, and my kids are here, and I'm so proud of both of them. But, you know, when I started Friends Select, what, I don't know how many years ago? We're old. I'm not going to be as eloquent as Jim is. You know, the first person I met was Jill. And I told her last night, it's like love at first sight. You know, she was my best friend. And then some bizarre reason, we both went to NYU together, and we didn't talk to each other for 4 years. So who knows? So anyway, it's just bizarre. But like when, you know, when I've been thinking about this and thinking about this and thinking about this, and I'm not one of those people, like I'm an artist. You know what I mean? Like I was born an artist. I think, you know, trying to remember Friends Select, like what I did here, I was at the dark room, like all the time. Me and Stephen Shore. And God knows where Stephen Shore is now. But like I did that, and I don't even, I mean, I remember a lot about Friends Select, but we don't remember the same people, which is really funny. Because I think we were allowed to create our own experiences here and create our own paths, which I think is a really beautiful thing about the education here. Is that, you know, we were allowed to be our unique people, you know, and I think that's really, really important. And I learned that skill set here, and I learned about community. And my daughter and I had a conversation with Chris and Norman about her curriculum, and one of the things that Norman said stood out about clubs. And he said, start one. If you want to start one, start one. And I remember doing that. And I don't remember what. I remember going to Harrisburg to lobby. I can't remember. Howard, right. What did it stand for?
Something about women. People organizing and working for equality.
Yeah.
Equal rights.
Equal rights. Okay. Yeah. So I did start a club, but I think it died as soon as we graduated. But anyway, but whatever. But that's where Liquid came from. Was that idea that like if you don't like where you're living or how you're living or what you're doing, change it. Just change it. You know, and I think for a lot of people, you know, being an artist, you know, everyone thinks of it as just, you know, a luxury. You know what I mean? Something that is not critical in our lives and just an afterthought. And we really need to make that a holistic part of how we live our everyday existence. You know, and I think, you know, I've been doing this for 24 years. I sat on the Philadelphia Cultural Fund board. I'm now on the GPCA board. I'm now chairing the grants committee there. I do a lot, you know, but it really means that like as a community, we all have to do more, you know, and you know, the privilege of going to Friends Select is not lost on me, you know, and it enabled me to do so much. Now we need to enable other people to do as much. Because this is the world we live in, and if we want the world to be a better place, we have to make it. Like, it's been a really rough couple of years. Life is really short, as I know well too well. I think you need to figure out how you want to leave a mark on this world, and what that means to you in the way that you can best do it. And I learned a lot. I learned I have a really good tribe of people. I don't get to see them all the time, but we can pick up at a moment's notice. And we did have a fun, debaucherous night last night, which, you know, none of us get to do very often, especially together. And, you know, we're in very different places in different worlds, but you know what? Like, there's still heart and there's still love, and that's really important. And, you know, I'm so proud of my kids, and I know that they're going to be the best people in this world because they know I won't allow them not to be. And, you know, and their grandfather and their father watching them. And I just want to thank everyone. Thank you for thinking of me. And, you know, hopefully in 10 years, you know, Philadelphia will be in a lot better place than it is now. You know, and that is the hope that, you know, what we create now will be sustainable, it will take us on, and that all the hard work that my colleagues and I are doing through the Cultural Alliance and through the Philadelphia Cultural Fund won't be lost on this city. So, thank you all.
Can we get one of Rachel and Dorian?
Rachel,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to get one of the tribe.
Double not there. Enough with the tender, loving, heartfelt articulation, please. I was reminded, Jill, as you spoke, of the great gift that Friends Like gave us of the ability to write. My goodness, that was impressive. I think there's a little teacher Janet in that speech, Jill, in the way you wrote it. It was beautiful. I should say that Jill is here with her mother, by the way, who she sort of follows in the shoes of as a wonderful psychologist. And it's so nice to see both mothers here. I think so fondly of both of them, though I have these sort of fleeting memories of each. My favorite memory, of course, of Rachel's mother, Diane, is the fact that she saw Rachel and me through one of our great triumphs, which was winning the 7th grade science fair for our solar collecting panel hot water heater. Big news back in those days, which she pretty much did single-handedly while Rachel and I kind of looked on. And we're very grateful for her. But I'm really proud, Rachel, to be able to be among that tribe of yours. It's awfully nice to watch the impact that you've had on this city and on the arts in this city. It's something I guess we could have guessed at in a way back when, but who knew? Who knew that you would shine so brightly? And I'm really proud of you. And I know it's been hard to shine these last couple of years, and man, you've managed to do it. So really, I'm really proud. All right, so I know I'm going to cry one more time because the next award is for truly one of my favorite people in the world, teacher Linda Patterson. To say that there was support for this award is a kind of understatement. It came from plenty of students, many parents, and from her colleagues here at the school. Teacher Linda was someone that I think I first met. I'm guessing that it was at a back-to-school night. It might have been on a transition night as my firstborn Zachary was coming up from kindergarten to 1st grade, and we met with the 1st grade teachers. And I remember one of Zachary's classmates' fathers, who was really nervous, sort of immediately raised his hand and said, my son can't read yet. I don't understand. All these other kids can read. My son can't read. And teacher Linda, in her indomitable sort of wisdom, said, you remember how your kids probably learn to walk at different stages, some really early at 8 months, some at a year, some a little bit late, and at 13, 14 months. She said, reading's a little bit like that, and I promise you, by the end of this year, everyone will be reading. And sure enough, they were. But what they also were doing was having a whole lot of fun. And Linda is, again, one of those incredible people who, with such grace, such humility, and such steadiness, can kind of lead a group of thriving, wrangling, 1st graders, take them by the hand, sometimes quite literally, sort of Tasmanian devils that some of them can be, and gently guide them through a year of fun and learning. I'm delighted that there's one of her favorite students, I think, and certainly one of her most greatest admirers, Luke Santilli of the class of 2019. Is that what it is? Who's at Penn, just an underachiever again at Penn, studying. Remind me, you are studying biology and finance. I mean, honestly, and he is going to introduce teacher Linda. Please come and join us. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So, as you heard, my name is Luke Santilli, and I attended Friend Select kindergarten through 12th grade and ultimately graduated in 2019. So currently, I'm a student at UPenn, and I'm studying in the College of Arts and Sciences, biology, as well as in the Wharton School of Finance. And it's interesting, when I learned with me, asked me how my family was doing, everything of the sort. She was always there for me, someone I could count on. And as I got older, and I was in high school, and as I was applying to college, she always asked to and kept catching up. And even at my graduation, I was so touched. She ultimately attended, even though I was one of only maybe 4 people from the original class that was still there. So, I think for me, there were 2 main stories that I remember. My memories from first grade are a little sparse, but I do have 2 stories that I do truly remember, and I feel like shaped who I am today. The first one being, as can happen with first graders, things got a little rowdy one day on the playground, and we all had a bit of an incident in the class. And me, for those of you who know me at Friend Select, I was a bit of a goody two-shoes. I never really broke any rules. At least I claimed to have never broken any rules. But so at that particular day, I had told everyone, we had it after the whole event, we brought everyone to the classroom, and teacher Linda wanted to figure out what had happened. And basically, I claimed complete innocence. I'd done nothing wrong at all. And I was completely the problem, however. So looking back on it though, I remember I didn't want to say because I was afraid, and teacher Linda, if you remember the event with Kenny, but I was very afraid that I didn't want to be reprimanded, I didn't want to be embarrassed in front of my peers. But really looking back on it, there was nothing to be afraid of at all. Teacher Linda is such a caring and kind presence in the classroom. She's not the type of person who would ever embarrass her students. In fact, she used the moment as an incredible learning moment for the students, a great teaching opportunity. And looking back on it, I really wish I did speak up and say something at the time, because I really feel that I would have learned something at the time, learned something greater, and I feel that the way she operated in the classroom just completely embodied the Quaker values. The second thing I wanted to talk about was, I remember in first grade we used to have these groups that we broke out into, these little reading groups where it was like 4 or 5 people, and in first grade, you know, people can read somewhat. There's somewhat of a sentence ability, but for me, I couldn't read a single thing. I used to just make up the words as I was going, and even in the classroom, I'd stare. We'd have books in the classroom. I'd open the books and I'd stare at the pages and just pretend I was reading because I had no ability to do so at all. And at the time, I'd been through a lot. I'd lost my father that year, and it was a very hard year for my family. But teacher Linda, I'm so thankful that she was there, because without her, I may never have identified the issue in time, and never been able to rectify the situation and really been able to achieve at the level that I have at this point in time now. I'm so thankful for everything teacher Linda's given me. She was the most incredible first grade teacher, and every single student that had her is so lucky. I really feel that I've carried forward values that I learned with her to today, and I feel that every student who had her could say the same thing. So there's no one more deserving of this award in my opinion. Thank you so much, teacher Linda.
Thank you all. Good morning to everyone. But I am so honored and humbled to be here. To be a teacher in this school was a pleasure every single day that I was here. I taught here for almost 35 years. So I taught like somewhere around 600 students, first graders, and to be remembered and honored by them when the youngest of the alums were in first grade 12 years ago, at least, a minimum of 12 years ago. I think that to say that I touch lives is actually an echo of what I would say has happened to me. To come to this school, let me just say that many of you know the story of how I got here with a teacher named Teacher Jean. And she was the reason that I came, but she wasn't the reason that I stayed. She was one of the reasons that I stayed. I have to thank all of the incredible teachers, the educators here, who helped me embrace both the art and the science of teaching. To recognize that each child who came through the door had something to give me, and that we were going to create a community that stayed together for about 9 months, where we kids walked in the door in September, anxious and nervous, and left in September, in June, ready for the next step, leaving me behind with their memories. And so, for me, the honor of having been a teacher who's remembered as a distinguished teacher is an honor that goes to all of the teachers, all of the parents who sent their children to me, to this school, and trusted that we were going to take good care and that we were going to do our very best to make sure that their precious child felt seen, felt loved every single day, even when they were having difficulties, as you said. And there were children and adults come through the door every day with something that they need to unpack. And our job is to help them unpack that and still respect the whole community, to honor each individual while supporting a whole community is no small feat. And my job would not have been possible without the teachers. As I look around the room here, there were so many people who supported me, and I could not be thought of as a distinguished teacher without having spent time with Teacher Rita, Teacher Charlotte, Teacher Jean, who's way over here, and most importantly, Teacher Elaine. Teacher Elaine and I worked together for 14 years, maybe 15 years in the same class. How many? 17 years. And she said her sense of humor, her strong work ethic got me and all of us through many a day. And I have to thank her for that. I would not be standing here without the support of her. And I just want to say one thing about, I was listening to folks speak and thinking about community and diversity. One of the things that I remember is vividly, one of the things that helped me think about what kind of a school Friend Select is was very early when I started. Jean and I commuted to work together, and one morning we were coming through the door. Jean, her daughter Leah, and I think maybe Micah was with us too, but in any event, we walked through the door and one of Leah's friends was sitting on the bench, and Leah said, "This is my mom," sort of like this. And Jean and I were walking side by side, and the girl to whom she was speaking said, "Which one?" And I thought, which one? You can see Jean, she's very blonde, but what I thought about, what I took away from that was, this is a wonderful place, a place where students don't just take things for face value. I could have been her mom. I wasn't, but I thought, this is great. I like this. I like that was a question. And that I think that when I think about a place that nurtures children from pre-K through grade 12 and helps them develop a way of looking at the world without assumptions, with the idea that they have something to offer, but they can't until they find out what needs to be done, who's here, and what can I do. I love every single day that I work here. And when I retired, and I did, just a couple of, it was June of 2021, I put away my last classroom. And I honestly thought that I would be lost, that I wouldn't know, because I spent so much time in creating communities and dispersing them off to the next space. And I'm not sure why exactly, but this is my theory. I don't miss being here because I carry everyone with me. I've been thinking about this image of a tapestry since Grace called me, and thinking about all of the threads. And what I know is that there's a thread there for everyone, particularly my students, all of the first grade students who I've loved so dearly, and whose stories can be brought up in my mind. I'm not missing them because they're with me. And so when Grace called me, she said, "Hello, Teacher Linda. This is Grace Pinkbinder. I don't know if you remember me, but," I interrupted her and said, "Of course I remember you. You were one of my favorite students," which I would say, because in fact, they were. I always thought of some things to love about each student. That was something I felt I had to do. At the beginning of each year, I looked through my class list, and I thought, here, I know about this child, I know this child, maybe I had a sibling, but many of them I didn't know. And so we spent a lot of time together, but early on, I had to find one thing to love about this child. Because sometimes you have to call on that. and fortunately, we did have a great time. As we said, the kids learned to read, they learned to write, but mostly they learned to care. And they learned to be confident. They knew that if they weren't doing something at that moment, they would. And they would. And I have to say that the parents were the most wonderful parents. How can you not be a distinguished teacher when you're working with so many distinguished folks? Thank you so much.
Come on up, Lee.
Elaine, come on up.
Yes. You have to be in this picture.
Put your foot here.
Can we get one of Luke, Elaine, and Linda?
Yep, sure.
My husband Jeffrey, who probably would have gone through, I don't know, oceans and mountains, crossed mountains and oceans to be here to honor teacher Linda, has often said, rather jokingly, although I fear there was some truth to it, that should something dreadful happen to Jeffrey and me, he'd be happy to leave our children to Friend Select. In Friend Select's care, I should say. And what I really think he meant by that, frankly, because he started saying it about first grade, is that he really wouldn't mind it, in fact, teacher Linda, if you were their mother. So we are, I was reminded by that, Luke, that was so lovely to hear you speak of teacher Linda in that way. And teacher Linda, it's delicious to hear you and be able to be in a room with you again, and teacher Elaine. And we thank you always from the bottom of our hearts for all you do. So I think I challenged our next presenter, Jake Kleinman, with the task of making Ben Hall cry. Please be pleased to not do that because I can't take it anymore. But I will say that I'm delighted to introduce the last award of our day, another Athletic Hall of Fame award. And it's presented by Jay Kleiman, who's the class of 2013, joining us from Delaware County, where his firm, Touchpoint Designs, is that right? It works with small businesses to craft soul-centered brands and purpose and impact. I went online to sort of figure out what that meant, and saw your website when I saw that written, and I was really struck by something on your website. You had, sort of scrolling across the screen, powered by passion, empathy, and curiosity. And to me, I thought, well, there's Friend Select again showing up in a pretty creative way. So I'm really delighted that you're here to present this final award to Ben Hall, who again, when this awards committee met, was sort of a unanimous decision, a rather easy one to make. And so will you please come and help us honor Ben?
Yes.
Whew.
All right. You hear me on here, right?
Yes.
Wow. So my name is Jake. It's nice to meet you guys. It's good to see some old souls in the crowd as well. I'm honored to present this award to Ben. I'm even more honored to be able to have played with him in all sports, basketball, baseball, as well as soccer. As well as watching this past year coach basketball on this arena as well for these students. So Ben is someone that's immersed into sport in every way possible. He's a competitor. He loves to win. He's someone that you wouldn't necessarily see him known for his speed or his size or his strength necessarily. But you'd see him, he's known for his calves, right? He had awesome calves. He's lifting up and down all the time, and he didn't necessarily have the one thread that you saw, amazing. But Ben had this, I would describe it in this way, this fearless tenacity. Ben had a fearless tenacity to compete and play the sport, and his demeanor, and just to share just a little bit of his character. It was a combination of a multitude of different things. But Ben taught me this, the word tenacity, and I didn't even know it when he did tell me. But every time he would jump on and off the floor, there was something that was triggered within him that he'd be the calmest guy you'd ever know. But you'd never see that until he stepped on the floor. And it was, I know he's got his soccer coaches and his basketball and his baseball, but there's a little bit of everything whenever he's actually playing a game. And so fearless tenacity is the piece that makes him up the most that I understand that he's given to me. And he's given it to his teammates. His teammates are the ones that, man, he put in some firepower, some tenacious underdog spirit. It's the thing that is what I think made him so great, because that's the driving factor that combines all your pieces together. The other thing he had was this tremendous ability to have confidence in everything that he did. So talent-wise, all these things, all these elements have to be here. But if you don't have confidence, then you're not actually going to be able to show up and excel. And so I remember one day playing basketball with Ben. I remember my shot wasn't going in at all. And I'm not a shooter, okay? But he taught me how to shoot. And he needed me to shoot because I'll tell you the story of the season, but there was a reason why. And the difference between a made shot and a missed shot, Ben taught me, was the idea of confidence. The idea of confidence is what allowed you to become a competitor.
Upper School concert is beginning in the theater.
Is that my 5 minutes, Christine? I'm on a timer. So I just want to paint the picture a little bit of confidence, because that's another cornerstone piece of Ben that I've always seen him with. Now, here's the other thing that made him great. You need tenacity. You need this ability to be confident in how you show up with the sport. But if you don't have the direction with it, and if you don't know how to excel and actually win a game or actually transform a team from bad to good to great, it's his IQ. Ben's IQ was 10 steps ahead of every single person, no matter what sport he was playing. He would play a chess game with people,
he could see everything. He knew and he understood the game, but he lived and breathed every sport. So no matter what he was playing, his IQ is what I think has driven him to become such an amazing athlete, especially, and I know we're doing Hall of Fame for Friends Select, but I'm going to give him to his college and everyone else, and all the pieces that are going to come after him that he's teaching for the sports now. And you know, I wanted to mention one more thing because, you know, Ben loved all sports, but it wouldn't be, you know, true of me to not explain the one sport he loved with his heart the most, and that was basketball. So the piece that I think, and why I'm standing here today, and why I'm presenting this award, and you guys are all here listening, is Ben had the ability to shoot a basketball. He could shoot it from anywhere, from the parking lot, from the bleachers. He was really, really good at it, and that's what allowed his craft to allow us to excel our senior year. And actually I've got the numbers, Bill sent them to me, but 64 threes in his sophomore year, 78 in his junior year, and the stat that Bill sent me said 97 his senior year, but I remember he had 100 threes his senior year, and it led the Southeastern Pennsylvania League. And here's why I remember, because, and Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I remember Ben doesn't celebrate at all. You know, he's not the Steph Curry that shoots the three and turns around and it's not good. His team is, though. So we were so good at transition defense because every time the shot went up, we were already back on defense. But that 103, and you tell me the story too, but I remember he celebrated and he got a warning for a technical. And that was the piece that struck a chord in me. I remember that. Yeah, I mean, there was an art of being able to shoot and to be able to take the craft of a sport and enhance it and bring your team together. And the last thought I'll say here is the highlight of his basketball career to me is not an individual piece or a specific moment. It's the actual season itself. We never made the playoffs. We were an underdog team. We didn't have a JV squad. We didn't have anything. We had one team. We had like 4.5 players playing. So we didn't really have a whole thing. But what we did do was we made the playoffs our senior year. We went 12-11, and Ben led us through his underdog demeanor and his fearless tenacity to be able to take us to an away game for one of the first times in the longest time to Philmont Academy and play our playoff game. And we did come up a little bit short, but where we didn't was we had all of the sports athletes, student body, and the teachers come to cheer us on. And that game, I remember the moments to the last final hurrah. And we may not have got the W, but I remember that season. I'll remember that season, and that's how I will remember Ben Hall.
First of all, I think about being at Friends Select. I was thinking about Bill and Tim. Just like being around them, they made playing sports at Friends Select a lot of fun. They always kept things really light. Bill, you probably kept things a little lighter than Tim, but I think that was really important, just to like be around the teams. Again, like how fun you guys made it. I always love that. As far as soccer, Coach Greg is here. He came up from DC today, and I think that just like speaks to his like commitment and his investment in the players. My senior year, I'll never forget that. Just like building the relationship with him was really, really special. I want to thank him for that. And yeah, I mean, Coach Sean in basketball, like to have a Catholic League guy here at Friends Select, I think was a really unique marriage. And he taught me a lot about accountability, and really helped me become a leader. And will always appreciate him for that. And, you know, just the opportunities that I got going to Friends Select, being able to play 3 sports, probably wouldn't have been able to do that at a lot of other schools. And I'm just, you know, I'm really grateful for this community, and for this school for allowing me the opportunity. So, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, that's so great. You know, one of the things that I don't think was said about you, I understand you're working for Project Home now, which is an organization that serves people living with homelessness and food insecurities in the city. And we think about, you know, scholar athletes, but at Friends Select, it's sort of like scholar athlete carer, community server, and I'm very grateful for the work that you do there. And also, back to Rose. Rose is, as was said before, the manager of the basketball team, and she came home with such enthusiasm when she learned that you were an alum. It's wonderful to have that continuity here. So, and the boys basketball team did great this year. So, thank you all. I think we're sort of at the end of this lovely day. I don't know about you all out there, but I sure do feel good about the place that we call our alma mater, Friends Select. It's always a pleasure to experience the light that shines in each of us in all these very different ways, and I'm so very grateful for the support that's given from the community. Thank you again, Chris, for putting this together, and your whole team. And thank you, Michael. I'm going to turn this over to you to say a final goodbye. Oh, I would say that there's some pretty exciting things happening this afternoon, like a lunch.
Lunch
Yes.
with former faculty. I think I saw Janet Goldstein come in. We've got Bob Cotter, a whole bunch of people. Jim
Brubaker's in the
Brubaker,
house.
Deb Coase.
Dick Hoffman is here, right? We've got
Lots of people. I can't even. Okay, I can't name them all, but they're here. And our transformation talk is happening, I believe, in the theater at 2:30, and then at 4 o'clock we're at Victory, right across the street. We're gonna have a happy hour, and we're gonna give a toast to Dick Hoffman's 60th year working at Friends Select. And for Lois George, who recently celebrated her 100th birthday.
Can you also join me in thanking Martha for doing a wonderful job? As we begin, let's finish for some sheer silence together. Thank you, and enjoy.